So let's just get our heads back in the right space, okay? We won't get too worried about this yet, because that, ironically, that's actually for the next part of the question. But let's start off. The management of... Now, this doesn't matter. It could be any company, right? It's quite generic. They want to generate forecasts of their corporation's performance over the next 5 years. So, again, another DSS. That's why we're in spreadsheets. The system must meet the following requirements. Okay, now... Blah, 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 blah. We're going to get into the specifics in a second, but the important thing is that nestled within here, there's a whole bunch of data inputs that we're going to need to include. And so that's why part A deals with those data inputs. It says, identify plausible data sources associated with each of the inputs. Okay, so all of these, in some way, shape, or form, appear in the all of those dot points. Okay. So let's think about it. Now, for 3 marks, I wasn't looking for like a super amount of detail. I was just looking for you to give me something reasonable, okay? So where is the company's, ABCs, where are their past year's sale records going to come from? Where would you think? I would think that probably ABC, right? The ABC keeps their own records for themselves. It's not like from somewhere else. They'll just keep it all in a database, right? Probably called the sales database. That's all you needed to say, like ABC's sales database. Sorry, I think I need to calibrate this. Hold on. Get this right. Here we go.
Game.
I win. Sorry. I think this is actually a new computer that I'm using. It looks slightly shinier, so I think that's why I had to recolor. All right, so sales database. Now, the same way, the cost records, now they're going to come from different people, right? So, sort of like which part of the company would have this? It's probably the accounts, like we have an accounts office, right? They're the people who manage all of our money internally, okay? So you might just say the accounts database. I accepted it if for both of these, you just said company database. That was fine, okay? I'm just looking for you to identify the fact that where are these going to come from within the company, okay? All right, now this required a bit more thought. Current and future predicted inflation rates. Now, you didn't actually need to, I wasn't assessing you as a commerce student here, okay? But I was assessing you for your ability to understand what something was and, translate it into a spreadsheet. Where's the, does anyone know who defines, inflation and interest rates and all that kind of thing? It's the Reserve Bank of Australia. So you need to say something like RBA or the government was okay, right? Both 3 and 4 are both defined by government bodies, okay? So Reserve Bank of Australia, who decides the tax rates? That's easier.
The government.
Yes, I would have said the government, but who within the government?
ATO.
The ATO, the Australian Taxation Office. Okay? Okay, now, lastly, careful. Now, I was a little more strict on this one. Percentages increase or decrease in sales, right? And then percentage of total sales for different cost categories. And I think the cost categories, they're mentioned up here, goods, admin, marketing. Okay, those are the categories, right? So where is the spreadsheet going to get these 2 pieces of data from? Now, I did sort of accept 2 answers for this last one. Percentage of total sales. Some of you might have thought, oh, this is like sales records, right? Same guys. So you might have said sales database, and I would have accepted that, okay? But a better answer is, for both of these 2, okay, they're actually what the user gets to decide and muck around with. They can change that. That's what makes this a decision support system, right? So I think up here it says, here we go, alters the predictions as the user adjusts, note that, right? That's how you know this isn't actually some historical data. The user's just making it up. What if we spent 20% on this? Or what if we spent 80% or whatever, okay? And in the same way, let's see, I lost it. Where'd it go? Different forecast inputs, right? So this is thinking, oh, I don't know, we might grow 10% next year as a company. Or we're really ambitious. We're going to double in size. We're going to grow 100%, okay? What's going to happen to our profits, right? So those are the different forecast inputs which are going to go into this, yeah? So both of these should come from the user, okay? Should come from the user. Right, now the fun begins, okay? So we have to develop a pen and paper spreadsheet design that does all of this stuff above. So now, let's dig into it a little more. it's doing forecasting, okay? It's trying to predict, right? So let's get into a little more detail. And as we go, let's highlight the specific things that are going to be inputs and outputs that are going to go into our spreadsheet, okay? So let me get another color. There we go. Ooh, look, it does the thing with my mouse. That's nice. Anyway, okay, let's walk through it. Generates accurate predictions of post-tax profit for each of the next 5 years. Okay, now, that's a big mouthful, but that's kind of, as you read through, you might realize that's the ultimate thing. That's our sort of endpoint, and all the rest of the calculations in here sort of feed into that. Okay, so predictions of post-tax profit. Okay, and because you get to, you can write in your papers, right? You should get this, and you should draw on it and say, okay, this is an output. Okay. Right, let's keep going. Alters the predictions appropriately for different forecast inputs. So we noted that already, right? Let's put that. I'll put it in a different color because that's not an output, is it? That's something that we get to decide. That's in. Okay. In terms of total sales increases or decreases, right? That's fine. Alters the predictions as the user adjusts. Okay, look at this. Costs of goods. There's an input. Administration. There's an input. And marketing. Now, notice it also says it's relative to total sales made. So when something's relative to another thing, right, it's kind of like, oh, I spend 10% of my money on this, and 20% on that, and 30% on this. So that's what makes it relative, as opposed to, I spend $50 on that. Well, what is that as a proportion of your total sales? Don't know, okay? So all of these three things here, they're all going to be percentages, okay? So just keeping track. So far, I have 4 inputs. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Use and display real data from at least the previous year to verify the inputs and predictions are realistic. Okay, so that's why it said you need past year's sales records. Okay, so I guess they're probably going to get fed in from a database, like a query will pull that in. Okay. Details cost associated with producing all of this stuff. For each prediction. Okay, now when it says each prediction, right? Take note of that. What that tells you is, I think, where does it say? We want 5 years in total, right, for this spreadsheet. So that means each prediction, each year is going to have to be dealt with separately. So one of the important things I was looking for in your design was that there had to be 5 years worth of columns for, whatever, 2014, 2015, 16, and so on, okay? Or something so that I could see you understood that there were different distinct predictions here for every distinct year. Okay, so that was really important. Okay, where am I up to? Express each of the above costs relative to total sales. So here's some calculations that are happening. Detail actual sales total required to meet predicted profits. Again, another calculation. And lastly, forecast will take account of 2 external variables which were mentioned down here. Inflation, so there's an input, and taxation rates. There's an input, okay? So in total I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inputs, right? So now I'm going to use those and they're going to be the basis of my design that I'm going to put down, okay? So here's what I was looking for in your spreadsheet design. Firstly, inputs, okay? And I just identified 6 of them, right? So I'm going to write them out. Let's see, sorry, let's do it. Help me remember. Okay, we had tax rates. We had inflation. We also had all of those percentages of those costs, right? So 3, 4, 5, they're all going to be percentages, right, of, what was it? What did we know? We had goods, admin, and marketing. So we as a company want to determine, okay, how much should we spend on each of these? Maybe our marketing budget's really small at the moment and that's going to be, not very good for us, so we should increase it versus how much we spend on, you get the idea. Okay. All right, now, does anyone remember, what was the last one? The 6th input, it was actually the first one we noticed. Does anyone remember? Here we go. Different forecast inputs. So that's us just making a guess and then playing around with the numbers to think, yeah, we've had a really good fiscal year. I think we're going to grow by this much next year. Or maybe not so much, just maybe modestly, okay? So that's, what would you call it, a growth prediction, if you like, or, a sales increase? How much more you think you're going to sell over the coming years. And because, this is going to go from year to year to year, it should be a percentage as well. So quite a few of these things are percentages, yeah? They're not in terms of raw numbers. I think I'll grow by $1 billion, that's a hard thing to quantify. And every year it will change, okay? Yeah?
Wouldn't the adjustment forecast be a decrease to it?
Yeah, that's true, okay. So I suppose you could call it percentage sales change. That would have been fine. I guess I'm being a little optimistic. I'm hoping that every year we're going to grow. Okay, no GFC that's going to screw us over. But yeah, that's true. We could forecast a drop.